We're combining all the best old school wisdom with all the top new school methods to bring you the optimal way to coach and play the great game of baseball. This is the 80-20 Baseball Masterclass with Coach Bo.
Welcome, everybody. Fired up for this episode 64. We're going to talk about picking teams and how to build your team. We are then going to discuss how to choose assistant coaches for those of you that are a manager or a head coach, how to choose assistant coaches, how to choose the right people to blend together on your coaching staff to optimize your team's success, or should I say the team's success. And if we have time today, we're going to get into the 10-80-10. It's essentially an 80-20 principle that Urban Meyer, the very, very, very successful, very wise Urban Meyer, believes in. He adheres to the 80-10-10 principle. It's another form of the 80-20 principle. Essentially, it's the 80-20 principle in a certain way, and how he uses it to optimize the buy-in from his players, to optimize the direction of the team culture. And if we have time, I want to get into that because this is really, really good stuff for all coaches. Now, for part one, picking your team, putting your team together, building a team. This could go a lot of different ways, and it will play out differently for every coach. The players that you're choosing from, the selection of players is not going to be the same, obviously, from league to league, from team to team, from area to area, from year to year, from season to season. With that said, I'm going to share with you some of the best tips that I have when it comes to parameters to building a team, when it comes to kind of a underlying idea of what you're looking for when you want to build your team, put your team together, and what players to choose and in what order to choose them. And in all fairness to everybody listening, I am prefacing this right out of the box. This will shake out differently for almost every team from year to year, season to season, area to area, league to league. With that said, here are some of the go-to characteristics to look for in a player when it comes to skill and talent and what they're going to bring to the team in terms of what their capabilities are when it comes to positions and within those positions. I highly recommend you look to get early on two pitchers with control and two pitches that they're comfortable throwing. Notice I didn't say perfect control, and notice I didn't say they need to have three or more pitches. Look for two pitchers that are bulldogs out there that are tough for the most part. I mean, if you're coaching 8U or 12U, the kids aren't mentally and emotionally going to be perfect, but for the most part, they're gamers. They want to be out there on the mound. They don't mind the spotlight. So you're looking for that. Not perfect scores, not perfect 10s here, but 7s and 8s with good control and being able to throw two pitches, being comfortable throwing two different pitches. And that could be a fastball, preferably a fastball is one of them, and then a breaking ball or change up or some kind of off-speed pitch that makes the fastball play better and also keeps them from just sitting dead red with the second pitch. So two pitchers with control, above average control, and two pitches. They don't have to have Yu Darvish 27,000 pitches, but two pitches. So two pitchers that just look like they want to be out there. They look comfortable on the mound, and you can see this. Look at the player. Do they look comfortable out there on the mound? Do they look like, hey, this is all right to be here? Is this a place I want to be? Do they have some control? Do they have an idea of where the ball's going? Some command? When I say command, are they hitting the glove for the most part, or at least above average for their age? And do they have a second pitch besides the fastball? And is their fastball, can they command their fastball, of course? And then do they have a second pitch that they're comfortable throwing, that they feel comfortable with, or something that maybe you could work with them on? So those would be the top two. I would try to get two pitchers early on, even if it means giving up, say, the best bat in the league, so long as one of those pitchers is a good option or, an above average option. When you have pitchers, they are going to have more influence on a game than a single hitter. The single hitter is going to come up every 9 at-bats or every 10 at-bats, depending on how many guys are in the lineup. And you have a pitcher that's going to be out there once a week for 5 innings, 4 innings, or twice a week for 3 innings here, 3 innings there, or maybe 6 innings, depending on your league. Their pitch count and a lot of things. But you get my point. Pitching. Then, sticking with this, and there's a little bit of a theme here on the first 4 guys I would look for. So the next 2 people that I'm looking to get if I'm a coach, and this is going to sound a little different than what you may have ever heard. I'm looking to get 2 catchers. Now, those catchers, especially at the youth level and even in high school, they're going to likely play other positions too. So they're not just pigeonholed into catching. But I would look to 2 players that I would try to get early on, 2 good catchers or 2 above average catchers. So what does that mean? Some athleticism. They need to be kind of athletic behind the plate. You want some athleticism. That could be small. Austin Barnes. It could be big. Just depends. Joe Mauer was very athletic. He was big. Austin Barnes, athletic kind of guy. Smaller. You want 2 catchers with some athleticism, maybe a little above average athleticism for their age, with an average to above average arm. And as I move forward with this utopian way of picking a team, the next 2 players I would look to get would be, and this is again out of what's left and also assuming that what's going to be there in the 4th round of a draft. If you're a travel ball, you're going to have a little bit better flexibility, a little more flexibility sometimes with this. But if you're doing a league-wide draft, I'm assuming that in the 4th round and the 3rd round, you can get 2 above average catchers and I think you get them early. And here's why. Those are premium positions. That's why I said 2 pitchers early. 1, pitchers will help a team more than any position. It will. They will have an influence, a greater influence on the outcome of a game than any other position, hitter. It doesn't matter. Pitchers are going to have a bigger influence on the outcome of a game. So I think you go early, get 2 pitchers, even if that means you give up the league's best hitter. So long as those pitchers are not just kind of average pitchers. You're looking for 2 above average pitchers with control and 2 pitches. Don't get caught up in velocity so much. Definitely not a thing that you should be turned off by, but looking for pitchers first and foremost with above average control and 2 pitches that they feel comfortable throwing pretty much in any count. And then you're going for the position that is going to have the least amount, most likely the least amount of quality depth, the least amount of kids that really want to do it. So you're looking in the 3rd and 4th rounds of your draft to get 2 catchers with some athleticism, maybe a little above average athleticism. So 2 catchers, and now you got 2 pitchers and 2 catchers. And there's a good chance those 4 players in your first 4 picks, at least a few of them are going to be able to handle the bat, right? Good athleticism, good pitchers, typically turn over and do pretty well at other facets of the game. But those are your priorities, in my opinion. You try to get 2 pitchers early with control and 2 pitches that they feel comfortable with throwing in any count. 2 catchers with some athleticism. They move decent around the plate. Not perfect, but decent. And with average to above average arm strength for that level. Now, your picks 5 through 8. Here's what you're looking for. A combination. Again, this isn't always going to play out right. This is kind of a template that you should try to best follow. The next 4 players are your 5th through 8th round draft picks. You're looking for 2 players that are versatile fielders that might be able to play multiple positions on defense, some athleticism. Again, I get it. You're getting to the 5th and 6th rounds. Things might be a little depleted, but your picks 5 through 8 should ideally, if everything plays out according to somewhat of a plan, although it's not, but if it does, you're looking for a combination of 2 versatile fielders, versatile defenders, some athleticism usually mixed in there, and a combination in those next 4 picks, so 5 through 8, round 5 through 8, those next 4 picks, a combination of 2 decently, above average versatile fielders, and then 2 hitters with good contact swings. And when I say contact, they're not like looking to just make contact, but they swing with a decent swing velocity, and do they, hit the ball, and do they find the ball, good hand-eye coordination, things like that. Again, I get it. You're looking at this going or hearing this going, well, Coach Bo, that's a utopian world we don't live in. I'm just giving you some parameters in terms of prioritizing what I believe are the biggest impacts when it comes to winning games outside of good team culture type of players. Again, if they're not, they shouldn't make this list. So picks 5 through 8, you're looking at now, your pick 5 and 6 may be 2 good hitters with good contact swings, and then you have 2 versatile athletic fielders come after that. But that's how I would stack the first 8 picks. And then from there, I would go back to pitching. The rest of the picks, I would just try to get pitchers. Obviously, if they can hit also, that should bump them up. If they can play other positions, which is very likely that your pitchers can play other positions, especially when they're younger. And even when they're older, I would go picks 9 and 10 definitely to pitching. What's the best out there that's left when it comes to control and 2 pitches? Obviously, the talent is going to be lesser and it's going to be more depleted at this level. I get that. But this is a template. It may work out just perfect for you, and it may be 50%. You got to have some flexibility, but at least you have a template going in. Now, backing up to those 2 pitchers and then the 2 catchers. You want to take 2 pitchers with control, 2 above average pitches, but then you bump them up in your rankings based off of their hitting. Not necessarily other positions they play, but by their bat. So you would take the first pick would be, say you have 2 pitchers that are very similar. They got above average control and they throw 2 pitches. Not necessarily the hardest throwers in the league. I'm not saying stay away from that, but 2 pitchers with above average control and at least 2 pitches. And then you take the best hitter first, and then the next best hitter second. And the same thing with catchers. If you have your catchers are similar or close, take the better hitter first, of course. All right, of course. You're going with the bat first. Not necessarily do your pitchers and catchers play other positions very well, but they don't hit. I would prioritize the bat, the at-bat, the hitting, because that, in my opinion, is going to have more influence over the game, over the course of the season, more influence on the outcome of the season than they would likely have at a certain defensive position, or that they're that much better at that position than another option. 9 out of 10 times, this is not going to play out exactly like I just scripted, but it gives you an idea of what you need to value. I value pitching with some control and a second pitch at the very top, then catching, especially with youth. And you may even do it like this. You may take your first 4 picks and mix them around a little bit. Maybe there's just an absolute dominant catcher. See, I like to have some flexibility there's some parameters to this template inherently. So your first 4 picks, you're looking for 2 pitchers and 2 catchers. Now, if you got the best catcher in the league that falls into your lap in the first pick, maybe you swap many hits. Maybe you take that first and you think there's 7 or 8 pitchers that are all pretty good with control, have 2 pitches that you think you can get in that 3rd and 4th round. Then you flip-flop them according to your league. With that said, you may have 2 pitchers with control, 2 pitches, go first, and then 2 catchers. But I would highly recommend you have some flexibility with those first 4 picks between pitchers and catchers. And then your next 4 picks between versatile fielders and good contact hitters that not necessarily the biggest slugger in the league or in the area, but also somebody who can make good contacts, hits, line drives. So there's some flexibility there, but you're seeing why and how I prioritize these positions, these skills, and how they contribute to the scoreboard and the overall outcome of your season. So there you go. Those first 8 picks, I think, are just really going to be the game changers for you. You have your flexibility with those first 4 picks, 2 pitchers, 2 catchers. And I try to be specific as to what I'm looking for, like what makes a great pitcher. It doesn't have to be tall, short, lefty, righty. No, don't get caught up in all that. 80-20, your player selection. 80-20 it. 80-20 it. Pitchers. It's got to have a lefty. Got to be tall. Got to be this. Got to be that. Got to be a sidearm. Hey. Let's just go with 2 pitchers with above average control and that throw 2 pitches with, some kind of comfortable feel. And then 2 catchers, don't have to be the biggest in the league, don't have to also be awesome hitters, although if they do, then they move up the priority list a little bit. But 2 catchers that are somewhat athletic and average to above average arms. They're not just going to get run on all day because their arm just can't get it there in any time at all. And then within those first 4 selections, you have some versatility. Like I said, you may have a stud catcher that you want to take first because he's that much better, then slide him up into the 1st or 2nd round. And then with the pitching, if you have just some stud pitching early on that you have fall into your lap or that you have an opportunity to get, they have control, they're studs, they're gamers, they're competitive, you grab them. So you have some flexibility within those first 4 picks. I would try not to get out of that parameter within those. I would stay within those parameters, 2 catchers, 2 pitchers with those specific characteristics. And then picks 5 through 8, your second 4 picks, I would look for a combination of hitters with good contact swings that hit line drives. They could have line drive swings and a combination of those 2 types of hitters that are also versatile athletic fielders. Now, if they're the same person, right? Some of you might say, well, what if they're the same player? What if that player does both? Well, then they slide up. Pick them with your 5th pick. Okay, but I would not prioritize those players over catchers and pitchers with control and 2 pitches they feel comfortable throwing. And then picks 9, 10, 11, 12, your last 4 picks, say your 12-player roster, 13-player roster, I would prioritize pitching. If you can get that, try to get pitching. Don't get caught up with, some of this, that, and the other. I would get some pitching, definitely, and athleticism and hustle. Hustle, too. Also, look for kids at the end are just gamers. Maybe they're just gamers, but maybe they're not going to contribute a ton on a skill level basis, but they're going to add so much to the value of the team, to the team culture, that they're going to raise everybody else up, even though their bat may not get that much better, even though they may, and I'll use a simple stat for everybody, even though they may be like a $150 type of hitters with their batting average right now, and maybe the best they'll ever get to under your tutelage is like a $175, they may just be an influence, a positive influence on the rest of the team that adds a win or 2 extra because of their positive influence or hustle. They bring out the best in those other players. So keep that in mind. So those picks 9, 11, skipping 10, 9, 10, 11, 12, those picks, I would go with pitching as a priority and then just really phenomenal attitude, hustle kids. And this is where the questions start coming about, well, I need a first baseman, I need a right field, I need a center fielder. Okay, those will all fall into place. You got to remember, unless you're coaching, I could take Mike Trout and teach him how to play first base, even though most of you would never think of him as a first baseman. The one position that's extremely hard to teach and get good at in one season is catching. That's why you get your pitchers and catchers. Not only do they have a huge influence on the game because they're involved in 50% of the pitches, assuming that your team is throwing the same amount of pitches as the other team, which isn't always the case. And but I would just not get too worried about like needing like a perfect set of, I need a first, I'm looking for even if a kid just tries out as a third baseman, just ignore that. Ignore that, okay? You can find a third baseman. You can get a kid that's maybe never played third base, especially at the youth level and the high school level. These kids are adaptable. They're adaptable. All right, it's a little different story when they're 22 years old and they haven't played a position in 6 years. That might be a little more of a challenge, but even then, you see it a lot. I mean, the Dodgers are putting guys in positions they'd never played before and sticking them out there for the World Series. And when I say haven't played before, they hadn't played in a long time or they really hadn't played very much. They move guys around and they trust that kids are going to be athletes. Players are going to be athletes for the most part. And if you got a versatile player, you can play different positions and learn it. And that's another reason I value way more than probably any other coach that I know. I value the intra-squad games where you play your own team, because then you get to have more at-bats, not just more at-bats, but most importantly, more opportunities to play different defensive positions because you're playing defense the entire game and you're hitting the entire game and pitching the entire game, but you're going to get more reps at those different positions rather than having to split them with another team. During an intra-squad game, you don't have to give up those reps, those positions, those at-bats, those pitches to other teams. You're keeping them for yourself. Intra-squad games, and this is where I trust you guys as smart listeners and smart people, intra-squad games are going to let players that maybe never played third base, but you knew they were a versatile player, an athletic player, somewhat athletic, but they never played third base, and you're like, I don't have a third baseman. I don't have a left fielder. I don't have, these two kids always played second base and catcher or second base and pitcher or second base and right field, but I'm going to put them in these spots. They'll do it. They'll be fine, okay? This is a great topic. I want to give a shout out to Cosimo, Dr. Cosimo out there, one of my original, like I said in the last episode, one of my original listeners. He shares stuff. He's just really awesome to hear from him and all you other great listeners that are sharing the feedback and your success stories. But I know Cosimo reached out and said, hey, the season's coming up and was hoping maybe this would be a good topic for you to bring up on your podcast. I said, you know what? That's a good idea. And I'm going to do that. And this is what I put out there. And so this gives you an idea. So we've talked about what makes up a good quality kid, a good quality player in terms of character, respecting their teammate, no bullying. They hustle. They're not all about themselves. And that goes for their parents. If they got parents, not bad parents, but parents that are a problem, then they're off. Their name gets crossed off. Sorry, just how it's got to be, because I've talked about this before. If parents that are ruining teams, and there are parents out there that ruin and poison the culture of not just the crowd, the fans, the other parents, but they ruin the culture of your team through their player, because at the dinner table, they're poisoning that kid's mind. The coach doesn't like you. The coach this, the coach sucks. The other, hey, that guy and that kid not that good. You should be playing. That poisons the culture. Parents can ruin it for a team. They can do it subtly underneath and underlying. They can crack the foundation. It's just not worth it. I wouldn't do it. And to be honest, there are so many parents out there that are problem parents that are allowed, their kids are allowed to keep coming out and being on all these teams, and they keep getting asked to be on all these teams, and you're giving them the green light to continue to be the way they're being. Now you're going, well, that's not fair to the kids. You know what? If you send a message and you're very upfront and say, hey, we're not taking you because we don't like what you're going to bring to the team. We don't like that. Or if they don't find any team to play for, maybe they'll start looking in the mirror and going, hey, nobody wants us, right? Now, it wasn't just that team or this team, but all the teams don't really want us as a part of their team. Maybe we need to change, and they may not, but it's not worth poisoning your team for one or two people. It's just not, or one or two families. It's just not worth it. It's not. Our society does this in so many ways, and it just chaps me. We sacrifice for one or two people and ruin everything. We ruin society for a few things here and there. I'm not saying you throw them under the bus, but I don't bend and break to those one or two people, especially narcissists. These narcissists and these parents that are these players that can come out as this narcissistic attitude. It's just not worth it. We have to send the message that, hey, we're drawing a line in the sand, and either you step up and you start acting better, and as a team player, and as a parent that's a team player, and as a kid that's a team player, and as putting the team first, good attitude, and then we'll bring you over. But we're not going to keep bending to your wishes, and we're going to keep folding, and then the team just turns into a disaster because we fell for the talent tease, or we thought that the parents didn't have an influence on the team, or whatever. Just don't do it. It's not worth it. We need to send a message to these parents and all that. It's the same with coaches. I think more players just need to say, hey, I'm not playing for that coach. I don't care if they win a lot or not. I'm not playing for that coach because I don't like the culture they set. So anyways, I'm going to get off this soapbox, and we are going to get to part 2, choosing assistant coaches. All right, Urban Meyer. I'm going to give a quote from Urban Meyer about Bill Belichick. And there's definitely a lot of things things as a coach I would not do like Bill Belichick. And definitely a lot of things that Bill Belichick does and the way he goes about it, I would definitely not do as a youth coach or anything outside of the professional game. He does things as a professional because it's professional. It's a job. That's just what they do. But youth sports is not. College is a little like that because the livelihood. But when you get down to high school and below, the coaches aren't they're not really relying on their success on the field to pay the bills. All right. Typically, high school coaches have other jobs. Most of them are teachers. And then youth coaches obviously are not relying on it because you're probably not getting paid anything. So with that said, there are some things we can learn from some of these great coaches, but not always do we need to follow everything. And that's why it's important that you listen to those of us that have been in the trenches, been around a long time, and can kind of sift through and decipher between what really made that coach great or what we can get from them and what we should kind of ignore or not really take and put into our team culture and whatnot. So Urban Meyer said, quote, Bill Belichick has often told me, always bring in people that can enhance what you want to do without changing the basics of it. And I thought this was an interesting comment. So if you're a coach that doesn't believe in bunting, you don't want to bunt. Well, then if you bring in other coaches that are all about bunting every time a player gets on first base with no outs, or every time a batter, or should I say a runner's on first and second and no outs, and where you're always looking to sacrifice in every sacrifice situation as determined by the old school coaching mindset, then maybe you don't bring on coaches that are all gung-ho with bunting if you're not a coach that really wants to bunt. I've been up front. I've been very upfront. I'm not a bunt. I wouldn't have my players bunt except for two situations. I'd love a drag bunt. And when that third baseman is playing back, and the other combination of some things with the pitcher on the mound, especially when that third baseman is playing back, I love a drag bunt. I love it. The other opportunity that I love the bunt is a safety squeeze, first and third, preferably first and third, where you're trying to also stay out of a double play, but especially with like one out, first and third. One out, first and third. And here's why. Most of you already can see where I'm going with this. If the hitter hits into a double play, the inning's over and that run doesn't score from third. So I love the safety squeeze. You're giving up an out to get a run and also move the runner up, ideally from first to second, to put him into scoring position with obviously two outs, but at least he's in scoring position and you've already netted a run. Are you going to move up a guy into scoring position and score a run for one out? I love that. I hate the traditional sacrifice. The numbers across the board for every level, for the most part, they don't support sacrifice bunting unless the other team just can't throw the ball at all and field the ball at all. And even then, I would just drag bunt or maybe do like a semi-drag bunt where at least you're really kind of putting a little extra pressure on them. So my point being, if you're bringing on a coach that's all gung-ho bunting and you're not into the bunting, like you want to do that unless you want to drag, or if you have a coach that says no bunting at all and he's an assistant coach and you want to bring him, he's like no bunting, then you're saying, well, wait a second. I'm going to tell the players when that third baseman's playing back or not paying attention, I want them to put the bunt down. I don't care who's up. I don't care what the situation is. We're looking for a free hit. Not with two strikes, of course, and maybe not with one strike, but definitely with no strikes. We're going to take one crack at it and try to get us a free base hit, right? And if there's bases are loaded or guys on base, you move them all up. And the safety squeeze I'm a big fan of, and you might have an assistant coach that's no bunting at all, then maybe you don't bring them on. And that's a small little example. There's a lot of other examples. You may have a coach that just wants to throw all breaking balls. They watched the Astros in 2017 and they saw McCullers throw like 35 straight breaking balls and they go, well, that's how you get to the World Series. So that's what we're going to do here. We're going to throw curveball after curveball after curveball, 90% curveballs. And most coaches are going to look at it and go, that's not really the philosophy I want to have. I'm not against curveballs, but I don't want to throw that many. I want to balance it out a little more or, whatnot. So maybe you don't bring on coaches that don't share your mindset on the things like the basics. You're looking for coaches that can enhance what you're offering and also are going to support and not undermine where you're coming from. So if in doubt, bring coaches on that are open-minded, beginner's mindset. Don't fall for the talent tease. Like, don't take just this phenomenal player. If the parent, the dad, the mom is going to come on board as an assistant coach and they're going to reduce the chances of your team success more than that talented kid is going to increase it most likely. So you're looking to bring not necessarily exactly like-minded coaches, but coaches that are going to work with you, support where you're going, and enhance the basics. They're going to enhance some of these things that we've discussed on the last 64 episodes that are really foundational components of great coaching. And they're working to enhance that, not overrun it and override it and overhaul it. And Urban Meyer finishes the quote, addressing the foundational principles, the basics that he didn't want any assistant coach to come in and mess with. He wanted them to enhance it. He said, bring people in, bring coaches in that believe in what you're doing. Sorry, this was Bill Belichick telling Urban Meyer this. Sorry, Bill Belichick's quote to Urban Meyer. I'll back up and read the whole quote boat all in one piece. Bill Belichick has often told me, that being Urban Meyer, bring in people that can enhance what you're doing, the basics of what you're doing without changing those fundamentals, those things that you really are non-negotiables, the foundational principles. And he goes on to say, bring in people that believe in what you're doing and just want to make it better. They believe in your philosophy, but they want to make it better. They want to add a little here, they want to add a little, they want to enhance your underlying philosophy. Another good example of this is if you have an assistant coach or you have assistant coaches set up before you're picking a team, you have to stick to your guns and say, we're not taking any kid that's not a 6 or 7 or above on a scale of 1 to 10 with terms of character, terms of hustle, coachability, respecting and being respectful of their peers. And if you think that a coach might come in and only cares about the talent, they fall for the talentees, that's not going to be a good fit then. So we talked about picking your team. We talked about some specific examples of how to build your assistant coaching staff or put a coaching staff together. So in the next episode, episode 65, we're going to break down Urban Meyer's 80-20, or as he says it, the 10-80-10 principle. And this is really, really, really interesting. It's a paradigm. It's a mindset. It's a game plan for getting the large group of your players, the 80% of your players, to follow the right 10% of your players. And I'll talk about how that all plays out in the next episode. This is something that is really, really important to understand. It talks about human nature and understanding kind of human psychology and leadership and what, low motivation versus high motivation, go-getters versus undisciplined and distracted players. And it gives you a game plan on how to go out there and optimize it, to improve it at a minimum, to get it better, at least to have it more favorable. Not always perfect, but more favorable. And that being a better team culture and more wins on the scoreboard. So we'll talk about the 10-80-10 principle from Urban Meyer in episode 65. You guys, you're awesome. Keep up the great work out there. And until next week, until next Tuesday, take care of yourselves, take care of that health, take care of your families, and then take this information and go out there and make the baseball world, your team, better, make it a better place, make it more fun, and let's light up that scoreboard a little more than we would have otherwise. All right, everyone, this has been Coach Bo. I'll catch you on the flip side.
This has been the 80-20 Baseball Masterclass. Take it to the field.